What would you do if a daddy longlegs alien was chasing you around? In the movie No One Will Talk to You, this happens. Okay, it's not called No One Will Talk to You, it's called No One Will Save You, but I think that would have been a better title. No One Will Save You came out in 2023, and just like Prey from last year, it went straight to Hulu, and I wish I had seen it in theaters. But this is the Gore versus the Boar, so let's count the good versus the bad, and let's see how many points this movie will get. Also, I do go over the whole movie from start to finish, so if you haven't seen it and you want to avoid spoilers, I would suggest watching the movie first and then coming back here and letting me know what you think. But if you don't care about spoilers, then go ahead and stay and let's have some fun. We meet our main character, played by Caitlin Dever, and she completely carries this movie on her own. I do think that the movie would have fallen flat had it been anybody else in the role, but Caitlin Dever carries this movie on her shoulders so good. Like, her acting is so great in this, especially since there is no dialogue. She just has to do it just by her facial expressions, and she does it amazingly. She's looking in the mirror and second guessing her outfits. She's a seamstress who seems stressed. We get tons of information right off the bat in like the first few minutes. We find out that she does live alone. Her mother has passed away. A close friend of hers has passed away. She does make her own clothes, but she's always second guessing herself. She makes like little model towns with like the shops and everything, kind of like what a perfect town would look in her eyes. And then whenever we see her getting to her really cool old Subaru, she goes into town and she tries to wave at people, but they all kind of ignore her. And we can tell that she's trying to avoid conversations as well. Like, she's very shy or very anxious, so we're kind of getting to know her a little bit, and very, very fast. They focus a little bit something more on an accident that must have happened a few years back. It seems like she used to have a best friend who's passed away, and it looks like she had something to do with it. And to help herself, she writes letters to this person as a form of therapy. The only time we see her happy in the beginning is her whenever she's doing her miniature town, as well as listening to music and drinking wine by herself in her little solo party. But this is a horror movie, so night comes and then everything completely changes. The whole tone just drops down. It gets very slow, very moody, very fast, with an awesome score. We've only been here for what, maybe 5 minutes, and it's about to get started right away. We see some lights outside and you kind of automatically guess that it's aliens. She does get woken up by some noises outside, and when she does wake up, she goes out to explore. We get glimpses of the creature here and there, mostly shadows or it just running past windows. And whenever it's inside her house, she runs back into her room. She hides under her bed, and then from behind the bed, we get the full look of this creature, and it's honestly your average like big ass head alien with the big eyes, and it's just your generic look. And to this point of the movie, I was wondering if this was the route they were gonna take, but they make some minor changes that I'll talk about in a little bit, because up to now I would have considered it to be very basic. While she's under the bed, you see the alien jump on her bed and then jump down to the side that she's on, but he's just standing up so he doesn't see her. And then you see like his feet, and they look kind of like this, like it walks on its toes. And then you see it go out the window and begin to levitate. She wants to make sure that there's nothing left in her house, so she grabs the most dangerous weapon she can find, which is a hair straightener, and she's gonna go out there and set this guy straight. She manages to get to the front door and lock it, but unfortunately for her, it's still around, and all her electronics start to go crazy like most alien movies do. The alien goes full Matilda and begins to make everything move around. The fridge doors are opening and closing. The pans on the walls that are hanging are swinging and everything. And she just starts to freak out. And then there's this little crevice between the fridge and like a cabinet. And she sits in that corner, and then luckily for her, the door opens to where she's hiding right there. Unfortunately for her, it's not a very good hiding spot, and then you see the little alien toes approach from the bottom, and then you just see the little creepy fingers go over, and then it slowly starts to get higher and start looking at her. Before we can get a really good look at it, she kicks the door and sends him flying, and then she begins to try to make it through the front door. As she's running to the front door, the alien cheats and Matilda's a door straight to her face, knocking her down. He goes too far and breaks all of her little model towns that she had set up there. He completely just flips the table for her, and she's trying to crawl towards it, but then he Matilda's her again and begins to drag her. Whenever he gets her close to it, it begins to levitate her, and they come face to face. And in a pretty cool scene, you see the one side of the alien's head, and then you hear it make some weird noises, and then you see her face and she looks surprised. And when the camera pans over to the other side of the head, you see that she had grabbed something sharp and stabbed the alien right in its head. She drops to the ground and she gets away from the thing, and then it just falls over. I like this because I thought that it was going to be like this alien was going to be hunting her the whole time or something like that. But right away she gets her first alien kill, and then the movie just gets going after this. But you can tell that she's freaked out and she's against her wall, and then you see that it's nighttime, and then You just get that shot to daytime where she hasn't slept at all. She approaches the alien and covers it with a rug, and she makes sure that it is dead. She tries to use her phone, but it's completely dead and none of her electronics or lights are working. She goes outside, not even her cool old Subaru is working anymore. She begins to freak out in her car and she's like, no, 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 come on. And these is the first words that you get in this movie, and I think this is like 15 minutes in. She takes a stroll in her bike to the town, and whenever she gets to the neighbor's house, you can see that it's been destroyed as well. So she wasn't the only one that got attacked. And then we get a pan out of where she's standing, and you see that there's some circles all over the grass. She goes into town with her head down because she doesn't want to talk to anybody, and she's going straight to the police station. But as soon as she walks in, when she opens the door, she sees an older couple, and then whenever the lady sees her, she spits in her face and just walks away. Earlier in the movie, when it first started, whenever she's writing her letters to her best friend, she tells them that she's seen her parents, and these are the same people. So the mom spits in her face, and then her anxiety gets the better of her, and instead of staying at the police station and telling them what happened, she just walks away breathing really heavy and hard. She sees a bus, and she's like, you know what, I'm out of here, screw this town. So she buys a ticket and gets in the bus, and she's wearing like the hat with the sunglasses, incognito mode that all superheroes use. As the bus is driving away, we get another cool shot where it's like an aerial view of it, and then you see the circles all over the town as the bus is driving, meaning that they were everywhere. We see somebody sitting behind her, and then it gets closer to her seat, and then she notices this, so she tries to stand up and walk out, and then this person grabs her, and when she turns around, it's this mailman that had delivered a package to her earlier, but it's not him. Because whenever he does this, like his throat, you just see something weird moving in there, and it begins to make the same noises that the alien was making earlier. She manages to fight him off, and then she gets out of the bus and begins to run, and then the mailman alien thing gets off the bus and just walks towards her, kind of like the movie It Follows. She runs through a cemetery, and then she stops in one of the tombstones that has her friend's name, and it says the dates 2000 to 2012, meaning that her friend passed away when she was only 12 years old. Some spooky clouds begin to cover the whole town, and whenever she's running back home, she sees a group of people, and they're all pointing up at the sky, reaching up, and they're all just staring up. One of them turns to look at her, and then you see that throat thing happening to him as well. Whenever she does make it back home, the alien is still laying there. She notices that something came out of its mouth and kind of like dragged outside. It looks like it left some slime. She can't find it, so she just goes back inside. She has a moment where she's looking in the mirror and she's like, this is my house, I'm gonna fight back. So she decides, you know what, enough is enough. I got my hair straightener, I got everything I need to fight these guys off. So she begins to do like a little getting ready for battle montage. She puts blankets in all of the windows and nails them in and tries to block everything as much as she can. I like the following scene because you see her walk out of a room. Whenever she's at a sight from that room, you see some light past that window that she doesn't see. And then she passes another window. Whenever she's passed it already, you see another light there. So she's missing all these things that we as an audience are able to see. Unfortunately for her, her hard work doesn't pay off, and the aliens are able to remove the blankets from the windows, no problem. They destroy her front door, and then whenever she's gonna run downstairs, you see a little alien guy land in the front door, but she doesn't see this as well. As soon as she gets into the door to the basement, this guy lands right behind, so she never got to see it. While she's in her basement, she's hiding behind a table that she has, and she grabs some scissors. A normal size alien walks in there and is just kind of walking around. She keeps like spinning as the alien's moving, and she's just kind of like avoiding him the whole time. And then whenever she makes it to one side of the table, on this side, there's a mannequin and it just falls in front of her. We see her, the camera pans down to the mannequin that just fell, and whenever it comes to her, there's an alien just on his knees, just staring at her. She then turns around with her little scissors. He just pushes her back with his Matilda powers and then pushes a table at her as well. She's still aiming the scissors at it, and then again it uses its powers and just takes the scissors out of her hand. She manages to escape this guy, and then whenever she gets up there, she gets attacked by the little alien guy. It's attacking her, but she manages to bite him, and then the pain is enough for him to let her go. And then she makes it to the kitchen where before she was boiling some water. She begins to throw plates and everything at him, and then she throws the boiling water at it as well. We get a glimpse of the power of the light that beams down from the spaceship, because as she's running away, there's a beam of light that just flashes in between both of them. So you have the little alien on one side and then her on the other. And then she has the pan, and whenever she stretches it out, the light kind of pushes it back towards the wall, crushing it. But the little alien dude, he walks through the light no problem, so it doesn't affect them at all. Whenever she turns a corner in the hallway, she turns around, and then the little alien dude turns around the corner as well, and he just gets on his knees, and he begins to do like this weird pose with his hands, and he just stays like that, so she's slowly backing up from him. He's not moving whatsoever, and then we get another scene where she doesn't see what happens, but we do. But she opens the door, that blocks her view, and as soon as she's about to close it, you see the little guy move and start climbing the walls. As soon as she closes the door, you just hear the creature attacking the door and trying to break in. She's inside of a laundry room, and whenever the creature breaks in, she manages to grab a mop and she begins to mop his face. It's not doing anything though, so she breaks it in half and then stabs the little dude through the wall. It's still alive, so she grabs one of the cabinet doors and just starts slamming it against his head, and then she finally takes this dude down. But there's still the alien from the basement, and then he starts to go up the stairs, so she jumps out the window trying to escape it. Once she's outside, we get a really creepy scene. She's walking around, and behind her is this shed, and you see like this little ball, which is like an alien's head, and then the lights just start to glow, and it just looks like an average alien, right? And when you're watching it, you think, okay, this guy's on the shed. But then it slowly begins to make its way out, and then it stretches its arms, and they're way longer than the other aliens. And whenever it fully shows itself behind the shed, is this giant like spider-legged alien creature. And this one's the one that we're gonna call Daddy Longlegs, because that's exactly what it looks like, and it is one of the scariest things in this movie. But before this creature can do anything, behind her is like this sheet that's drying. Whenever she tries to go around it, the mailman's right behind it, and the mailman grabs her and begins to take her towards Daddy Longlegs. Whenever he has her there, we see that the spaceship comes over her. Before it can open and beam her, she fights him off, and then the light hits him instead, and it only gets like his upper half, but you just see that half like completely break. Daddy Longlegs is not happy about this, and he begins to chase her. She goes around the house, and him being so tall, he goes over the house. And then in a really weird scene, you just see her kind of like running away, and he's standing on top of the house. I don't know why, but for some reason, he just like falls off the roof like if he tripped, and he landed on his back. The only reason we get this whole scene, which is a really goofy scene, is that it gets up backwards and begins to chase her on all fours. She goes into her car, and then he just breaks through the first door and then gets stuck inside the car. And then she looks down and she sees that the car is leaking something, and luckily for her, she has her trusty lighter with her. So she drops down and sets the car on fire, runs away, and then the car explodes, killing both the Subaru and Daddy Longlegs at the same time. She runs back into her house, but the other alien that was in the basement is still in there. She runs into one room to hide, and then here we see a bunch of pictures like all over the wall, all over the roof, everywhere. And it's pictures of her and her best friend that has passed away. The alien walks in there and he begins to look at all these pictures, and it seems like he's like captivated by them. She tries to attack the alien from behind while he's looking at the pictures, but just in the flick of her wrist, he just sends her flying through the wall. Which this part will get a bore point just because they kind of show how strong these guys are by themselves, but they seem to not be able to manage this one girl. I feel like had he done that from the beginning, it would have been over. She makes it to another room, and before she can do anything, finally the light beam reaches her and it just freezes her. She can't move or anything, and then she begins to levitate, and then she gets slammed against the ceiling, and then she's just stuck there. From her point of view, we see the alien come into the room, and whenever he makes it under her, he starts to levitate himself and come face to face with her. This is the first time that we see a clear picture of the alien's face, and they look just like Beans from the movie Rango. It begins to spit something out of its mouth, and it looks like a little ball with like hairs on it. And it begins to move slowly into her mouth. Whenever it goes into her mouth, the next scene is her waking up in her room like nothing had happened. Her whole house is clean, nothing's destroyed, and it's just like it was a bad dream. She hears something in her house, and whenever she turns around, you see a girl running towards her, and it's her best friend. She looks at her and she's kind of like in shock, and then whenever she sees her clearly, she begins to cry, and after an hour and 7 minutes, we get our actual first bit of dialogue. She looks at her and she says, I'm sorry, and then she shoves her hand down her throat, and then she takes out that parasite. Whenever she takes the parasite out of her mouth, then she's back in real time when the aliens are still there. The little parasite thing manages to get out of her hands and it runs away, and whenever she tries to chase it, you see a beam of light come down, and then you see some silhouette of something, and then she begins to run away. Whenever she's running, we go back to seeing who's in the silhouette. We see what seems like her face eating the parasite. She's running through the woods, and then whenever she turns around, she sees herself. The other version of herself comes face to face with her, and whenever they're really close to each other, the other one stabs her in the stomach. We see our main girl, she has a pocket knife that she had grabbed earlier, and then she just slices the throat of the other fake one. The other one falls down, and then we see her grab her, and then she's just like holding her while she's dead, and she's just crying with her. Just stroll in the woods, and then we see another Daddy Longlegs in the woods, and in this setting they look super creepy. But before Daddy Longlegs can do anything, a beam of light hits her, and then this time she actually gets sucked up. She's laying down, not on anything, she's just levitating, and then you see a bunch of those aliens around her. One of them reaches out with its finger and then places it on her forehead. And then here we get a bunch of visions from her past. We see her playing with her mom, and they're both doing the little town modeling things. So this was a hobby that they used to have together. And then she's having like an out-of-body experience, so she's seeing all this herself. And then whenever she walks outside, she sees a bunch of police officers and people crying, but we still don't know why. She keeps walking, and then somewhere a little bit further, she sees her young self and then her best friend, and they're having an argument. Her best friend pushes her down, and while she's on the ground, she grabs a big old rock that she sees. Whenever she gets back up, she hits her friend in the head, knocking her unconscious and ultimately killing her. Then we see herself again as a young girl, and she's writing letters to her best friend already. And you can see how this like affected the town, because it was like a peaceful town that nothing had happened, and then you get this young girl who accidentally, well, I don't want to say accidentally, but kills her friend. And then the whole town just kind of looks at her as a killer for the rest of her life. And then at the same time, you see how she would be living this life, like kind of like shelter from everything else, and having that guilt inside of her. She begins to cry, and then the aliens are kind of all like around her, just talking to each other. And then she gets beamed back down. She's laying on the floor in the woods that she was at, and then she's just looking up, and all we get is a shot of her face, and you just see a bunch of lights that are kind of like happening in the sky, assuming all the spaceships are like flying around. And then she just begins to laugh. We get a very A24 ending with this movie, as she's going into the town, but this time she's like waving at everybody, and everybody's waving back. Everybody's super happy. Then we get a scene where it's like her in this like really nice place, and everybody's dancing, and she's dancing with everybody, and she's having a really good time, and she's just super happy. And this is how the movie ends. The aliens did let her live with her own memories and her own life. All these other people are seeing their perfect world, but for her, in her perfect world, her best friend would still be alive. But since she's the reason that she's not alive, she'll always know that it's a fake life. So she chose not to give in to this fake life and took the parasite out. Now, I don't know why the aliens let her live. Maybe it's the fact that they saw her life and how messed up it is, and how people used to treat her, and they kind of like feel bad for her. Whatever the case may be, it's up to your interpretation on here. But it just seems weird, because these aliens are like superior beings to her, that some of them could easily kill her if they wanted to, and she did kill some of them, so I don't know why they don't care about that. But either way, they're letting her live. But at the end, you do get behind this character. You want her to succeed, you want her to live and everything. Obviously, she's made mistakes. I mean, we've all made mistakes. I've never hit my friend with a rock before, but I have made some minor mistakes. So it's kind of like you can't get behind her, even though what she did was horrible. I guess in a sense, you do get like the best case scenario ending for this character. And the last scene with her dancing with everybody in this nice building kind of puts it into perspective that the whole time she was building the miniature homes and the miniature towns to what she thought was the perfect place to live in. And at the end, she gets that with all these fake humans. Well, not fake humans, but like alien taking over humans' bodies, people. But that's No One Will Save You. It's definitely a movie that like you can see in two different halves. The first one being like a home invasion that's like a really creepy horror movie, and then the second half is more like a sci-fi kind of like trippy movie with like a kind of like a similar like A24 feel to it. So let's see how many points this movie is going to get. At the end, No One Will Save You ends with 8 Gore points versus 3 Bore points, giving us a total of +5. At the end of the day, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. And I see that it's very divisive. So if you like it, if you don't, let me know. I want to see what you think. Share your horror passion with us, and don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and comment something down below. Tell me what you thought about the movie, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And as always, let me know what you think.